Let's do an upgrade on the pickups and wire loom. At the price point of these cheap kits, it's understandable that the pickups aren't going to be that great. But I think I found a cost-effective alternative where you can actually make a big difference in the sound and not spend a whole lot of money. We're going to look at the Musiclily wire loom and the Wilkinson M Series single coil Alnico 5 pickups for this upgrade. Now, since this is a series on building a kit, I don't have any sound samples for this video, but I only have one more video left and I will be doing a full review and go over everything as far as how it sounds and a real world applications. So hopefully you still check out this video. There's a lot of really cool information in here that you might gain benefit from. And if so, please give it a comment, like, or subscribe even. We'd love to have you here. I am going to be doing reviews again soon, but this is just taking all my time trying to get this series done and in a playlist. So anytime you decide if you want to build this kit, you can come to my playlist and follow right along. So all that being said, let's get to the upgrades. So we're going to start with this carbon fiber pickguard I got off of eBay and start from scratch with this pickup installation. I'm also going to be using the input jack cover instead of the traditional metal one. I just think it looks great for this guitar here. I'm also using surgical tubing for the spacers instead of springs. The thing is about these that I really love is that you can put the screw over it and it'll hold it in place while you're trying to screw the pickups in rather than fight with that spring the whole way through. So we're going to use those. I also had a set of cream color pickup covers and knobs already with me, so I didn't worry about buying the cream colored stuff from the pickups, but if you don't have this stuff, you can always order the right color pickups. It's just a real nice, tasteful, elegant look for the guitar. And, you know, that's important too, right? So there's a few tools you're going to need. I use these set of dikes, a Phillips screwdriver. You can use a big-handled one or, you know, a smaller one. It don't really matter, whatever your choice is. I think I switched between the two during this build anyway, so. And some solder. Always got to have some of that around. And here is my soldering iron. It's a adjustable temperature one. It's got a really nice tip on it. They do make some cheaper, more affordable ones that work just fine. So let's start with the wire harness. Now, typically I build my own wire harness from scratch. I just order the components. But when I saw this wire harness, I thought for the money that it is, it might be a good idea to try it out and see. So like if you're not all that great at soldering, this would be a great way to go and still get a quality harness on top of it. And I was really impressed with the packaging and how it was shipped and all that. So here is the wire diagram. It only has one in Chinese and one in English. And you can see here it's very easy to read and easy to understand. So there shouldn't be any issues there. And honestly, all in all, I was really, really impressed for the money on this thing. Now, it has American-style pots and a switch. I read they were made in Korea, the pots are, but it's still the American style. So you have a full-size pot and a nice American-style switch on there without a circuit board. As you can see here, they also put a treble bleed in there and a nice orange drop capacitor, and obviously it's all 250K pots, and cloth covered wire, and it looks just like a vintage wire harness, which is pretty great because I love using that cloth covered wire. Now, I don't know how well these pots are going to hold up over time. I mean, looks like the Korean pots have really stepped up their game over the years. So I'm pretty confident that it's going to be just fine for a while. And this harness really reminded me of like the 920D harness. And I think Lawler offers a pre-wired harness too. And they're each like $100, you know, and this thing was $37. So I'm willing to take that chance and see how well these pots hold up over time for the savings on that. But for the money, I mean, it is a great looking wire harness. So I'm excited to try this thing out. Now for the pickups, these are the Wilkinson M Series high output pickups. But they're really not that hot, to be honest with you. The resistance on them is like 6.4K. So they're really still like just a hotter vintage type pickup. Here is the wire diagram for it. It's also easy to read, easy to understand, and it shouldn't have any issues there. And obviously in the box it comes with your standard screws and springs for mounting the pickups. And they're all packed individually and you know, nicely taken care of. And so, like I said before, we got to swap out the white pickups covers for the cream ones. And they're 52 millimeter pole spacing, so you don't have to worry about them not fitting. So what I'm doing is I am detaching the input jack off of the wires so that when I feed the wires through to where the input jack plate goes, it'll be able to reattach it no problem and not have any issues. That's the only thing I had to do to this loom to get it to work the way I wanted it to. So there's very little soldering here, but there is some soldering. Another thing I like to do when I remove this stuff is I just keep like a 10 millimeter, an 11 and a 12 millimeter socket handy. So I'm not like, you know, fighting with those little screws and stuff. You can just hand loosen everything and it doesn't have to be super tight or anything like that. And it's just a lot easier to deal with those little screws that way. Also, the spacing on this should be exactly the right spacing for the holes in the pick guard. So really, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever putting this thing in the pick guard. And as you can see here, it was a perfect fit. Everything slid right into place, no problem. I didn't have one issue with even having to stretch the wire out or anything like that to move it. As you can see, it just fit perfectly right in there. And for the switch screws, I ordered just gold screws. I have a bunch of gold screws now that I can do other guitars with. And that way, you know, everything's matching really well. And there it is. It is mounted. No problem. Everything looks great. I didn't have a single issue with anything on this wire loom. I mean, and the solder joints look great. The wiring looks great. It looks professional. It's brilliant, brilliant little kit there for $37. Now, when I go to mount the pickups, as you can see here, I put the little rubber tubing over the screw, and it'll hold it into place. Right? So you don't have to fight with them screws all day long. And I really like that, to be honest with you. It's just easy. You just put the tubing over the screw and screw it into place, and you don't put the pickup very high in the mount. I keep it very low just so that when I go to do my setup, I'll be able to adjust however I need to adjust things. And really, that's it. Now, everything looks great. The pickups are all marked so you know which one goes where. And now it's time to hook up the wiring for the pickups. And as you can see here, the diagram is very easy to understand. And so you got where all your grounds go, and then all the hot wires are going to go to the switch up there, and it tells you neck, middle, and bridge. And I mean, it's very, very, very easy to do. So we're going to get this ready to go. I add a little solder and to fill in that little hole on the tab. This way, when I heat the solder up again, I'm able to just put the wire through the solder and let it cool off, and it'll be good to go. This can be a very tedious process when you're first learning how to do this, so just take your time and it'll all be good. So with this cloth cover wire, you don't have to trim the actual covering on it. All you have to do is push back the cloth. And once you do that, add a little bit of solder to the wire. They call it tinning. And you have a little bit of solder on the wire and a little bit of solder in the tab. And basically, you just have to warm it up again and put it through the hole and let it cool off, and you'll be good to go. If you need to add a little more, you can, but this will at least put it into place and allow you some time to work the wire how you want to work it. And then obviously I try to make a routing to where it'll go into the pickup cavity just fine and not have an issue there. And yeah, just like I said, we're just tinning the wire and then heating up the tab and attaching it to the tab there. And anytime, feel free to double check and make sure you're on the right lug and that you are putting it in the right spot. And so that's what it looked like after I soldered the hot wires to the switch. Now we will move on to the ground wires. Now, when you're doing this, I take a piece of sandpaper and I scuff up the pot where I'm going to add the ground wires to. And then I will add a little solder to the pot itself and tin the wires like I do with all the other wires. And then just add the wires to the pot. And you can get them to stick and then add a little bit of solder afterwards so that, you know, you're not making too much of a mess. And you just want to be careful not to get too wild with it, because you could easily run solder down inside that pot and, you know, break it that way. So just take your time with it. Don't get too rushed. Don't get too crazy. And next thing you know, you got yourself a nice wire harness that you did yourself pretty much. So here is the ground wire I ran from the claw to the inside of the guitar, which will ground the bridge out. And so I also run this wire right here to the pots on the pickup cavity, and the ground, I screw the screw in to where the ground wire on the bridge is connected, and so it makes a great ground loop all the way around. Easy peasy. One other thing you want to think about is protecting your finish. You know, you really want to be careful, because that hot solder will land on something and it'll ruin shit. You know, so be very careful on how you do any of that stuff, and try to keep it as protected as you possibly can. And then, like I said before, here's where we got to run the wires for the input jack through that little piece of wood right there, because it's showing there's nothing covering it. And so that's the only reason why you have to detach that input jack in the first place. But basically, you just run the wires through, get a little bit of slack to the best you can, and then start soldering. I'm going to add this ground wire to the second pot. Because they're all connected, they're all grounded, so it doesn't matter. You can add it to any pot. Just because I don't want to reheat anything that I already done and take the chance of it coming apart. You know what I mean? So I just add that ground wire to the other pot there. I make sure all my wires are going to clear to the best I can when I set the pickup cover on top there. And now I'm just setting it on here. I'm not trying to put it in the cavity yet. Right now, I'm still trying to attach all my parts. So I get a little bit of slack from the wire that's inside and get ready to attach the input jack. So yeah, you could double check to make sure when you're getting ready to hook up the input jack that you have the right positive and negative hooked up. And then basically just resolder those wires right back to where they were before. Also on this input jack, you got to make sure the tab is toward the back of the guitar. If you have it flipped to the side or the other way, the cable will not go in the hole. So just make sure that the tab is the grounding tab is facing down, so that when the cable clicks in, it'll have plenty of room to be able to click. And then we're going to do what I call the tap test, which you just plug in your guitar and just for a light volume, turn your amp on and just very lightly tap the pole pieces. And this will tell you if your pickups are actually working, because you'll hear an audible tap, and you can also hear a difference when you're messing with the tone knobs. So you can actually hear whether the volume knob's working or whether all the tone knobs are working or anything like that. And then once it passes the tap test, I go ahead and screw everything in and get it mounted how it's going to be. And then I do the tap test one more time, just because sometimes when you're doing this, you could ground something out or touch something somewhere, and then instead of trying to fix it when you got all the strings on and everything, you can take care of it right then and there. Final touches, we're going to add the volume and the 2 tone knobs and the blade switch tip, and we are good to go. We have ourselves a upgraded pickup set, and we are going to get ready to be playing this baby real soon. So I'm excited. The pickups were $50. The wire loom was $37. So for $90, we're going to see how they sound and put it to the test here real quick. So the next video is going to be the last video, which is a setup video, in which we will go over everything you need to do to set everything up and to get it playable. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave it down below. I'd love to have you subscribe here if you want, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.